Hello, and welcome to the first webinar of the FY27 round of the Community One Stop for Growth. My name is Juan Vega, and I serve as the Assistant Secretary for Communities and Programs here at the Executive Office of Economic Development. On behalf of the Healy Driscoll Administration and Economic Development Secretary Eric Paley, I want to thank you for joining us today and also for your interest in advancing economic growth in your community. This webinar series is designed to help you better understand the Community One Stop for Growth, including both the technical aspects of the application process and how your projects and broader economic development goals align with the One Stop. As in previous years, these webinars are intended for anyone interested in learning how to navigate the process and access state resources through the One Stop. Whether you're a municipal official or represent a nonprofit or a private organization, if you are seeking state funding to support projects that strengthen your community's economic development efforts, you're in the right place. I will note that we are recording this webinar, and so please be advised that recording meetings by any means, including the use of an AI application without prior permission, is strictly prohibited. We will post this recording of the webinar to the One Stop webpage later this week. Okay, in terms of the roadmap for this webinar, we will be covering an overview of the One Stop. We'll focus a little bit on what's new in FY27, talk to you about the development continuum, which is kind of a key component of this process, go through the guidance phase and the various components of that. We'll talk about the full application, and then certainly we'll be open up by questions. So I'm joined today by Pat Shannon, who's Director of the Community One Stop for Growth. And we will take a comprehensive look at what the FY27 round of the One Stop, including we'll go over a quick history and review of grants provided in the past 5 rounds. And all the programs that are in this year's One Stop. We'll then discuss a few changes and really get into some of the details. We invite you to submit at any time to submit your questions through the Q&A function on your screen. Next up, we want to talk about, we're now entering our 6th annual round of the Community One Stop for Growth. And as many of you know, the One Stop first launched in 2021 in direct response to feedback that we heard at the time from communities across the Commonwealth about the challenges of accessing state resources to support housing and economic development goals. With grant programs spread across multiple agencies and operating on different timelines, it was often difficult for communities to track when available opportunities or even know that they even existed. We also heard that completing multiple grant applications placed a significant burden, particularly on communities with limited staff and capacity. In response to this feedback, we took a hard look at how we could improve access to our programs and to streamline the grant process. The result was the Community One Stop for Growth, a centralized portal that brings together this year 14 community and economic development grant programs offered through the Executive Office of Economic Development, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and Mass Development into a single application and collaborative review process. Next up, we'll talk about some of the key benefits that we want to highlight, both for you as an applicant and for us as well as state officials. First, during the guidance phase, applicants have the opportunity to receive early feedback on potential project proposals before even beginning to put together a full application. And they do this, you can do this through the expression of interest process. We'll discuss the EOI in more detail shortly, but it is a valuable tool that we strongly encourage all applicants to use. It is an optional tool, but certainly one that we really encourage you to use. Another key benefit of the One Stop is that it saves time while expanding access to funding opportunities. We know that staff capacity is limited and at various levels, and that researching and applying to multiple grant programs for the same project can be a resource intensive. So the One Stop addresses this challenge by providing access to the state programs most likely to support your community's economic project through a single application, deadline, and submission process. Even if your project is not a fit for the one-stop program, we will work to make sure and try to help make referrals to other resources that the state may have whenever possible. Finally, the one-stop strengthens the partnership between communities and the state by providing a more comprehensive view of local priority projects. This approach allows our partner agencies to work collaboratively with you, recognize projects that advance year over year, and better coordinate resources rather than reviewing projects in isolation. Next up, we'll talk about the four main stages of the community one-stop process. So each round begins with the guidance phase, which is what we're in now, which gives applicants the opportunity to receive direction and ask questions before beginning to prepare and submitting a full application. The guidance phase includes three key tools: the expression of interest, these live webinars, and virtual office hours. We'll take a closer look at these resources later in the presentation. Each round, the next stage is the full application, which is the primary mechanism for requesting actual funding through the one-stop. The streamlined application allows applicants to submit a comprehensive project proposal for consideration. The questions you're asked are going to vary depending on where your project falls along the development continuum. To better understand where your project fits, we strongly encourage you to attend webinar 2, application guidance, which is scheduled for next Wednesday. Once applications are submitted, they move into the collaborative review phase. Under this single application structure, projects can be evaluated by multiple programs that may be a good fit for the project's funding needs. Staff from all three agencies work together to review applications, ensuring that each project is considered by the appropriate program and that funding recommendations are aligned. The round concludes with the announcement of the grant awards, and for projects that are not selected for funding in this round, applicants will have the opportunity to request feedback from the program that reviewed their application to help with any future submissions. Over the last 5 rounds, this process has resulted in more than 1,500 grant awards, totaling over $744 million in state funding. These investments have supported projects in 306 of the Commonwealth's 351 cities and towns, benefiting more than 600 unique organizations statewide. At the same time, it's important for applicants to understand how competitive the Community One Stop for Growth is each year. In each of the last 3 rounds, we have received more than 700 applications, more than double the number of projects we were able to fund. The total amount requested consistently exceeds the funding available. And so we often must make partial awards in order to stretch the limited resources and support as many high-quality projects as possible. Here on this slide, you can see a map showing the communities that have benefited from the one-stop, at least one-stop award. So far, we have funded projects in 87% of all Massachusetts municipalities, including 158 of the state's rural towns and every gateway city. This year, the One Stop includes 14 grant programs offered through EOED, EOHLC, and Mass Development. We have EOED's MassWorks Infrastructure Program, the Rural Development Fund, the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program, and the new Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Capital Grant Program. And new to the One Stop this year, the Seaport Economic Council Grant. We will go deeper into these programs shortly. EOHLC's Housing Works Infrastructure Program, the Housing Choice Grant Program, Community Planning Grant Program, and the MBTA Community Catalyst Fund are included in this round. And finally, we have Mass Development's Underutilized Properties Program, Site Readiness Program, the Brownfields Redevelopment Fund, Real Estate Technical Assistance, and the TDI Equity Investment Program. You can visit each program's website to view the specific program guidelines, and we recommend watching the program webinars when those become available. As we teased in the email that went out last week, we have a few exciting updates for FY27. First and foremost, we've completed a major overhaul of the expression of interest process. We've launched a new EOI tool powered by artificial intelligence that provides instant project-specific feedback tailored to each proposal. Pat's going to be walking us through a live demonstration shortly, but we're very excited to introduce this tool and expect it will be a valuable resource as you refine your projects. Next, we've made an update to the development continuum for FY27. The community action and placemaking category has been replaced with a new downtown activation category. Downtown activation supports projects focused on re-energizing downtowns and commercial centers with the goal of attracting more visitors, strengthening existing businesses, and encouraging new investment. Through this category, applicants can seek grant funding to support the implementation of downtown improvements, as well as access tax credits to support the occupancy of long-time vacant storefronts. We've added a couple of new programs to the One Stop this year, as I've mentioned. First, it's the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Capital Grant Program, which both builds on and replaces the original MDI Technical Assistance Program, which unfortunately is no longer being offered. MDI Capital provides funding for projects that transform downtowns, village centers, and main streets into thriving, walkable, and inclusive destinations. The goal of the program is to foster vibrant, livable centers that attract residents, stimulate business activity, and advance equitable regional growth. MDI Capital funding supports two primary types of projects. First, there are planning grants, which fund activities such as downtown and village center improvement plans, public realm strategies, and district management or revitalization frameworks. These projects help communities establish a clear vision and roadmap for future downtown investment. Planning grants fall earlier in the development continuum within the planning and zoning category. Second are implementation grants, which support capital improvements that activate and enhance downtown districts. Eligible projects include streetscape and public realm improvements, wayfinding and signage, and upgrades to public spaces that encourage pedestrian activity, support local businesses, and reduce vacancies. Implementation grants fall within the new downtown activation development continuum category. The second addition this year is the Seaport Economic Council Grant Program, which provides coastal communities with streamlined access to state funding through a single application. The program's mission is to advance economic growth in Massachusetts coastal communities by supporting projects that strengthen the maritime and blue economies. This includes investment in working waterfronts, ports and terminals, marine infrastructure, tourism, and maritime innovation. SEC funding is available for two types of projects: planning grants to study ways in which to strengthen the maritime economy within a community. These grants are accessed through the Planning and Zoning Development Continuum category under the new Planning for Economic Growth project type. And then we have infrastructure grants that support the construction or physical improvements that directly enable economic development in our coastal communities. Examples include upgrades to port facilities, marine infrastructure, public access improvements, or other capital projects that stimulate maritime activity. These projects should be submitted in the infrastructure category under the coastal infrastructure to support the blue economy project type. Next up, we want to focus on the development continuum. And so throughout this presentation, you've heard reference to it many times, and it will continue to be a reference point throughout this presentation. The development continuum is a critical component of the one-stop. It represents the life cycle of a major community development project, from the initial community visioning to final construction. Applicants should look at the development continuum as a guide for where in that time span their project might fit within the one-stop. The development continuum is broken up into two broad groups. The first group, which demonstrated here on the left, is preparing for growth, which are grants that generally will support activities and initial steps by community-based actors to attract and guide private investment in the community. Preparing for growth includes the planning and zoning, downtown activation, and the site preparation development continuum categories. The second group, which is on the right, is catalyzing specific projects. And this is where you'll see grants that support the implementation of construction activities to leverage private investment directly, leading to new commercial, industrial, and/or residential development, as well as other improvements to further the community's vision. This group includes the building and infrastructure development continuum categories. Now I will pass this on to Pat for a deeper dive into development continuum categories.
Great, thanks, Juan. So as Juan mentioned, I'm Pat Shannon. I am the director of the Community One Stop for Growth here at EOED. So before we dive a little deeper into each development continuum category, we're first going to just take a look at applicant eligibility as relates to each category across the continuum. So first, we'll start with public organizations. So in addition to municipalities, a wide range of public entities have applied and been awarded grants throughout the one-stop. This includes redevelopment authorities, water and sewer districts, regional planning agencies, among others. So public organizations are eligible for all 14 programs in the one-stop, and they can apply in all 5 categories. The one note is that a number of our programs are only available to entities in certain communities. So Rural Development Fund, Housing Choice Grant Program, MBTA, Community Catalyst Fund, TDI Equity, and Seaport Economic Council Grant Program all have an eligibility criteria that is dependent on a community's certain designations that a community may have. So definitely check out the guidelines to learn more about which communities are eligible for those programs. Nonprofit organizations are eligible for funding through 3 one-stop programs. So Site Readiness Program in the site preparation category, and then Underutilized Properties Program and TDI Equity in the building category. And then finally, for-profit entities are only eligible for funding through Underutilized Property Program and TDI Equity, both of which are in the buildings category. We strongly recommend any nonprofit or for-profit applicants to engage with your local municipality leadership early on to ensure that you have coordination, alignment, and local support. So here you can see where each of the 14 programs fall within the development continuum. In the full application, when you're filling it out, you'll see that there are links to the guidelines for each of these programs, for the program that's most likely to review your application. So definitely, again, take time to review those guidelines prior to completing the application so that you're familiar with each program and understand, again, eligibility requirements, and then what the programs will fund as eligible activities. All right, so now we're going to dive deeper into each of the 5 categories. So we're going to start with planning and zoning. So each development continuum category is broken up into project types. Planning and zoning has 4 project types. So first off, we have the first 3: community plan, zoning revision, and planning for housing. are all primarily associated with the community planning grant program. Community plans support planning efforts to help guide a community's long-term vision, which can include community-wide comprehensive plans or more kind of broader regional plans. The zoning revision projects support updates to a community's existing zoning framework, and this especially includes efforts that will help advance housing production through zoning reform. And then planning for housing supports planning activities aimed at better understanding local housing needs and identifying strategies to reduce barriers for housing development. So this is where you'll go if you need something like a housing production plan. And then the fourth project type is planning for economic growth. So this includes a range of initiatives focused on commercial and economic development planning. So examples include downtown planning to support growth, technical assistance to identify opportunities within commercial, industrial, mixed-use districts, and then again for eligible communities, planning efforts to support growth in the maritime economy. So projects submitted under planning and zoning category are also eligible for review by Housing Choice, the Housing Choice Grant Program, and the Rural Development Fund for communities that meet their eligibility criteria. Second category is our new downtown activation, which includes two types of projects. The first project type is incentivize business in vacant downtown storefronts, which is associated with the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program. So this was introduced last year to the One Stop. And through this project type, communities can apply for up to $50,000 worth of dedicated refundable tax credits to be used to attract businesses to storefronts that have been vacant for 6 months or longer. Awards to this program provide municipalities with access to the credits through 2027. So applicants will want to demonstrate that they'll be able to use those credits within the year. Definitely recommend checking out the Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program guidelines if you are interested in pursuing those tax credits. The second project type is downtown improvements to support growth. So this corresponds to the implementation component of the new MDI Capital Program. So awards in this project type support the revitalization of downtowns through physical improvements that draw visitors to the area. Examples can include wayfinding signage, implementation, kind of smaller scale sidewalk upgrades, or other enhancements to public spaces like parklets or gazebos. Really just improvements that help activate and energize the downtown and bring visitors to support the local area. The third category is site preparation, which supports projects aimed at preparing sites for future development. So these are typically sites that in their current condition require some work before they can attract private investment. The ultimate goal is to ready these sites for redevelopment that can create either new housing or new jobs. So similar to last year, we have brownfield site cleanup, which provides funding for site assessment and remediation activities on publicly owned parcels that a community would like to eventually put into the private market. And then municipal surplus property disposition provides technical assistance to determine the best future use of municipally owned properties that have been or will be officially surplused by the community. So a key change this year is the addition of site design and analysis as a project type in the site preparation category. So this project type focuses on pre-development activities necessary to prepare a site for future development. So, and that's different from site improvements to unlock development, which focuses on kind of construction component. So both of these project types are supported by Site Readiness Program, but I'll note that pre-development projects in the site design and analysis bucket that are ultimately supporting future housing development, or a site that a community would like to see future housing development on, could potentially also be reviewed and funded by the Community Planning Grants Program. So it's really important to note that these site improvements are intended to directly support future development, and that should be a key consideration when you are preparing your application. And then finally, I'll note that all of these projects, except for the brownfield site cleanup, are potentially eligible for funding through Housing Choice and the Rural Development Fund. Moving on to the catalyzing specific growth portion of the development continuum, we first have our building category. And I'll note that again that this is the only category that is available to for-profit entities. So the first project type is underutilized property rehabilitation, which is primarily associated with the underutilized properties program. These grants support the design or construction of improvements that are needed to make an existing building fully usable. It's important to note that the applicant must own the building or otherwise demonstrate clear site control, and funding cannot be used for new construction. In addition to UPP, these projects could be eligible for review by Housing Choice and Rural as well. The second project type is revitalized commercial space in the TDI district, which is associated with the TDI Equity Investment Program. So TDI Equity supports improvements to underutilized public-facing commercial spaces to help re-energize downtowns and attract more foot traffic. This program only funds projects located in or around active TDI districts, so only communities or only applicants in communities that have a TDI district will see this as an option when they're applying. And our final development continuum category is infrastructure. And this includes MassWorks infrastructure program, Housing Works infrastructure program, and the Seaport Economic Council grant program. I'll note that this category is only available to public organizations. Both MassWorks and Housing Works fund pre-development and construction of infrastructure improvements, but the key difference is the type of development being supported. So Housing Works focuses on infrastructure that supports fully residential projects. So if your project involves pre-development or construction of infrastructure that's needed to allow a housing development to move forward, infrastructure to support housing growth is the project type that you should be going for. MassWorks funds public infrastructure improvements to support commercial, industrial, or mixed-use development. I'll note these programs work very closely when we get to the review phase, so it's possible that your project could be reviewed by both. But definitely just use that as a guide when you're applying. Just think about the type of development that the project's supporting. Then there's two additional project types, so small town road improvements to enhance public safety. That's funded through MassWorks and it's available to towns with a population of 7,000 or less. These are grants meant to address roadway safety concerns, including dangerous roads or urgent threats such as the imminent collapse of a culvert. And finally, we have coastal infrastructure to support the blue economy, and this funds infrastructure projects in coastal communities to help stimulate growth across the maritime economy. And again, Rural and Housing Choice could potentially review any projects submitted in this category. All right, so now I am going to hand it back to Juan.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat. So here we just it's a quick recap, right? This is lays out the map of the one-stop process that we've just talked about. We start with the guidance phase, which includes the expression of interest, the webinars, and the virtual office hours. This is really where we focus a lot of attention to try to give prospective applicants as much guidance as possible before they start committing to completing a full application to try to ensure that they can put forth the strongest application possible. We then move into the full application, kind of right at the center here. That's the actual application where you make the request for funding, where you lay out all of the specifics of the project and answer a series of questions that relate to each of the programs. Once we close that out and the deadline comes for the full application, we move into the collaborative review phase where the three agencies work together generally over the summer to evaluate and score and look at the applications and finally get to the point where we can put forth award recommendations, get those approved, and then grantees are all notified about the decision later in the fall, and either you receive a grant that's been awarded to your project, or you may get a not awarded notification, in which case we open up to provide feedback to help applicants understand perhaps where the application could be made stronger in the next round. In terms of timeline, so this year we opened the One Stop on January 23rd. It's usually in coordination with announcement by the governor and/or lieutenant governor at the Mass Municipal Association Connect 351 conference. With the opening of the round, applicants are now able to begin working on the applications in IGX at any time. You can start opening up an application, drafting it, etc. So we are currently in the guidance phase of the process. As we have mentioned, this is the time to take advantage of the expression of interest, the virtual office hours, and these webinars. We'll discuss components of the guidance phase momentarily. We'll discuss that further. The guidance phase closes as we open the full application submission period. Applicants may submit their applications beginning anytime starting on May 4th. So between May 4th and the first deadline and the final deadline, which is June 3rd, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. That is when the IGX portal closes, and that's when it would be pencils down. Following the submission deadline, the collaborative review process will begin and continue, as I mentioned, throughout the summer. And we hope to have grant announcements ready to be made later in the fall. I will make one correction here is that the guidance phase this year, actually, because of the new virtual tool, we'll be able to continue accepting expressions of interest right through the end of the deadline, right on June 3rd. So we won't be shutting that off as we normally would have. Next up, we want to kind of look a little bit closer here at the guidance phase tools with the expression of interest part. As noted, we're very excited to introduce a sustainably enhanced version of the tool powered by AI. Each year, we've worked to make the EOI more useful for applicants. Early on, the process allowed only one submission per round, and feedback could take several weeks for us to get back to you. Over time, we've moved to an open form on our websites that allow unlimited submissions and reduce the turnaround time to just a few days. Even with those improvements, we consistently heard that feedback. Most recently in the last round, we still had the feedback that the folks felt that the feedback was still too general and didn't provide enough direction on how to make the projects more competitive for funding. So in response, we've completely rebuilt the EOI tool, and this new version uses artificial intelligence to analyze the project description and compare them against the criteria for each community one-stop program. As a result, applicants now receive more detailed project-specific feedback immediately on the screen. Instead of selecting from predefined multiple choice options, users can submit a brief project description and respond to some follow-up prompts that are tailored to the project. Based on those responses, the tool identifies which one-stop program may be the best fit, explains the alignment, and offers guidance on how to strengthen a future application. If a project is not a fit for a one-stop program, the tool explains why, and when possible, it points applicants to other resources that may be a better match in the state. In addition, users receive an EOI feedback report by email with additional program information. Because the feedback is now provided instantly, we've decided to keep the EOI tool open right through the end of the round, ensuring that it remains available to support applicants right up until the last day as they work on their applications, especially at that time when guidance is the most valuable. I do want to note that this is a new tool and is actually currently in beta, right? So that means that we are continuing to refine it. We're learning how it performs across a wide range of project types, and we'll keep refining it as usage increases. Staff will be actively monitoring the feedback that the tool is providing and ensuring that applicants are receiving the most accurate information. With that, I'll hand this back to Pat to walk us through the live demonstration of the new EOI tool.
All right, thanks, Juan. So the live demonstration is actually a pre-recorded live demonstration, but so I'm gonna play a quick uh, recording of the full process of the EOI. This is actually this demo. The EOI demo will be uploaded to our website uh, as its own kind of technology webinar that you'll be able to reference at a later date. So let me play this for you. In this video, we are going to quickly go through the full experience of the Community One Stop for Growth expression of interest. We're going to start at the One Stop homepage. So we go to www.mass.gov/onestop. And right at the top, we'll scroll down a little bit and we'll see submit an expression of interest. So we will click this to take us to the EOI page. Here we'll see a little bit of information about the EOI, and if we scroll down, we'll get to the area where we start our chat with the EOI agent. So we get started by entering a project description in the box on the screen. So basically what you should be thinking about when entering your project description is letting the agent know what scope of work the grant funds would pay for if awarded, and then also providing information about the anticipated outcomes of the project. So how will your project drive growth within your community? So I'm going to paste a project description I previously wrote in the box here. So in this case, the town of Reading is looking for funding to support a waterline extension project to allow a large mixed-use development to move forward. This development would result in about 100,000 square feet of new commercial space, about 80 new apartments, and this project's required in order for the development to move forward. So I have my description, and I'll click Begin Conversation, and that will take me to the agent chat experience. So there's some required information that the agent needs in order to make a determination. So it needs to know where the project's located, needs to know what type of organization is proposing the project, and then there's basic information like organization name, project contact name, email, and a project name. So I'm going to paste some information here in the box. You can enter this information in a variety of ways. You could do it, paragraph form, sentence form. You could do it as a list. You could do it line by line, comma separated. It doesn't really matter as long as you provide the information to the tool. So I entered all the information here, as you can see, in a couple different ways, and I'll click submit. So now the agent is just asking me to verify my information. So I'll read through, make sure everything looks good, and I'm just going to say, yes, it's correct, and click submit. And now the agent has some follow-up questions before it can make a determination. In this case, the agent wants to know, is the project in the design engineering phase, or is it ready for construction? It's looking for information about how committed the developer is to the site. Is this a real development project that's likely going to happen, or is it more in the early planning stage? So again, I'm just pasting in an answer, and I'm going to click submit. So you can see I left one of the questions unanswered, so the agent came back to ask it again. I'm going to say developer is not providing a match, but the town will use local funds to support. All right, and now the agent had all the information that it needed to make a determination, and here you can see it is letting me know that my project is eligible for the MassWorks infrastructure program. So when a project is deemed eligible, basically what the tool will give you is a project alignment summary, letting you know why the project's a fit for this program. So it'll take what you described and kind of match it up with components from the program guidelines to show that it is a fit for the program. It'll then have some tips to strengthen your application. Normally, this section would pull more information from the project description. In this case, the project description is pretty light. So for next steps, you can see it tells you you'll be sent an EOI feedback report, and then lets you know that you need to apply through IGX for funding. So now I received an email from the system, and you can see that there's a Word document attached. Here it has it includes the feedback that I received on the screen, as well as some additional tips about the MassWorks program. So now I finished my EOI. If I want to submit another one, I can simply press this arrow back, and it takes me back to the EOI page where I can start all over again. All right, so that was an example of a case where a project aligned with a one-stop program. Now we just want to do a very quick demonstration of cases where a project is not a fit. So here, this is going to be a really quick click through, but this is a for-profit developer that wants to build a new commercial project. And I'm just going to talk over this one. So they're going to go through the same steps they did in the last demo. So there's a few follow-up questions. And basically, this is a new development from ground up, which isn't supported by any of our programs, at least not the commercial, not the vertical construction component of it. And here you can see the feedback that was provided. So um, basically, it's broken down into an explanation of why the project isn't a fit. So it explains that underutilized property program only supports the rehabilitation of buildings, not new construction. So we try to help you understand why the tool doesn't think this project matches up with one of our programs, and then it'll provide referrals to additional potential state resources. So here, the tool is saying that this applicant should reach out to Mass Development to talk about some potential financing opportunities. So again, the user would be emailed a report and hopefully have a better understanding of how they can potentially move forward with the state. So now I'm going to hand it back to Juan to talk about our other guidance resources.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat, for walking us through that. So to supplement the expression of interest, we also offer virtual office hours. And so this gives applicants the opportunity to interact directly with One Stop and program staff and ask questions as they prepare the application. So if you think about, kind of utilizing the expression of interest to get some general guidance and then joining one of the office hours to further refine a question you have would be a great way to approach this. So we'll be offering two office hours series again this year. The first one is general guidance hours, which focuses on questions about the overall process, such as navigating the application, understanding the development continuum, addressing technical and system-related questions, right? Overview. We'll host monthly general guidance sessions from February through April, with an additional session during the final week in April, just ahead of the application submission period. The second series is program office hours, right? And so this is more giving applicants the opportunity to talk to and ask specific questions from that are program specific directly to staff who administer those programs. These sessions will take place over a 2-week period in April, after all the EOI participants have received their feedback, their initial feedback. This year, most sessions will feature multiple programs and generally grouped by development continuum category. So we ask you to look up the schedule, which will be on the website. Please note the purpose of these office hours is to clarify program requirements and expectations. It's really not a way to assess or predict the competitiveness of any individual project. This is really to get clarity about how you complete the application for your specific project. We strongly encourage anyone interested in attending to register in advance and submit questions ahead of time. This helps give the staff some time to review the questions and prepare more thoughtful, helpful responses during the session. The full office hours schedule, the registration links, et cetera, and the question submission form are available on the Community One Stop for Growth website. Then we want to talk about the webinars. So obviously everyone watching here is already aware of the third component of the guidance phase, which are these webinars. Each year we host 2 live webinars to help familiarize applicants with the one-stop process. This is webinar 1, which is the one-stop overview, which is the session we're having now. The second one, which will take place on Wednesday, will focus in more detail on the full application. In addition to the live webinars, We will also be posting a series of pre-recorded webinars to the One Stop website. On or about Thursday, February 6th, we'll release the technology webinars, which are going to focus on the actual use of the online platform. And so this year, instead of one long session, we've created several shorter videos so applicants can quickly find answers to specific technology-related questions. Then on or around February 12th, we'll post all the program-specific webinars. Each of these is included an overview of the program and examples of projects that have received funding in prior rounds. With that overview of the guidance phase resources, I'll now hand it back over to Pat to walk us through the full application.
All right. Thanks again, Juan. So again, the full application is the primary vehicle for requesting funding through the One Stop. The full application is now open for applicants to begin working on your applications, but we're not actually going to be accepting applications until the full application submission period, which again is going to open on May 4th and will close with the deadline of 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, June 3rd. Please do not wait until 11:59 p.m. on that day, however. So just a couple notes, there is no limit on the number of applications that any one organization or community can submit or be awarded. However, we do require that a separate application is submitted for each individual project that you would like to be considered for funding. So we're going to go through a high-level overview of the full application structure right now, but again, we encourage you to join us on Wednesday for a deeper dive into the application. After the June 3rd deadline, we'll move into the collaborative review, as Juan already mentioned. Each program has its own goals and scoring criteria, but all applications are evaluated using a common set of core criteria or core considerations, including whether the project has an achievable scope, the applicant's capacity to execute the project, the project having a realistic timeline and budget, and the anticipated outcomes of the project. So I'll just go through all sections quickly, and then we'll get to your questions. So first off, in the application, you'll see there's a one-stop resources section. This is informational only. We just have a lot of the information that we presented today available at your fingertips so that you can reference that as you're filling out your application. Form 1 is our applicant information. So this is essentially just high-level info about your organization, the type of organization, contact info, things like that. And then we'll get into Form 2, which is the project information. This is the actual meat of the application. So this is where you're going to tell us all about your project, about kind of what you're requesting, your budget, your anticipated outcomes, all the important things we need to assess your application. And then some applicants, this is a dynamic section that will change based on the type of project being submitted. So for example, downtown activation, site prep, building and infrastructure applicants will see additional questions that are focused specifically on the type of project. So for example, building applicants will be asked to provide information specific to the actual building structure. And then infrastructure applicants will have questions specific to the infrastructure being installed. We do have a section for supplemental materials, so you can upload any documents that you'd like to share that were not required in the application. And then finally, we have our certification, which is just a signature page, certifying that the applicant has the authority to submit on behalf of the organization and should be completed by the chief executive or authorized official. All right, so that was a lot of information, but we are recording this and for your reference later. And now we're going to dive into some questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pat. So we'll start here and we'll try to get through as many of these as we can. We do intend to stay over a few minutes over 1 o'clock. So let's dive right in. So the one question we have is, do the MDI capital grants work for housing? Really the answer there, this is really infrastructure for downtown development. It's not meant to support any particular housing project. There may be housing or other type of businesses developing in the site, but the program is really geared towards driving and increasing pedestrian traffic and downtown activity, bringing more people to your downtown, ease of movement for people, and being able to bring more activity to your downtown. Um, Another kind of MDI capital question is: would creating public restrooms in a downtown area be an eligible project under MDI capital program? This is an interesting proposal. I think, as the guidelines would lay out, if this is a municipal project and municipally owned public restrooms, I presume that this would be something that could be proposed within the realm of the capital program as a capital expense. I would certainly encourage you to review the guidelines as well as attend the webinar for the program, or the office hour for the program, I should say, to discuss this further. Then we have do sites need to be owned by the city or a private site eligible? Pat, you want to take a shot at that? This depends, I
Yeah,
guess.
so it depends on the project. So really, the site should, in almost every case, the site should be owned by the applicant or the entity that would be receiving a grant. So, for example, if it's a underutilized properties program that a for-profit entity is applying for, then that entity should own the site. If it's an infrastructure project, generally, if a municipality is applying to install infrastructure, they should own, like, the infrastructure should be installed on public land or within a public right of way. So basically, you need to have control of the property that the project's occurring on.
Yeah. And I would just emphasize, like, for infrastructure improvement and most of the programs in the one stop, it's going to need to be the municipality or public entity that owns them. Really, it's underutilized properties portion which is in the building category. That's really the only place where a privately owned
Yeah.
property, right, would be
And then,
eligible.
yeah, site readiness, there's like nonprofits, CDCs are eligible for site readiness. So there's
Got
that
it.
scenario as well. But yeah, it's
Got it.
limited. It's a very limited number of projects that would be true for.
Great. Next question I'll pitch it to you, Pat, is kind of AI, and we did get a great shout out about the EOI tool being excellent. Somebody found that they got very great feedback. So their follow-up question is, if I was to refine my request to be more once, so they had received initially a not a fit response. So their follow-up is, if I were to refine my request to be more one-stop worthy, is there a way to tie my request back to my first request?
So the answer to that's no, not no. Right now, they'd be separate. They come in separately. I mean, that said, we're obviously tracking everything that we receive, but the tool itself likely wouldn't. Again, this is part of the beta where we're still kind of learning. But my understanding is that the tool would not kind of have a memory of your past submission. But that said, we encourage you to certainly resubmit and try different kind of iterations of your project. There's no limit. And kind of, I saw another question come through about how does AI guidance play a role in the application. So, we don't look at, when we're reviewing applications, we don't look at EOI participation or kind of what the EOI is solely meant to be a tool for you as the applicant to provide you information. I mean, we benefit from kind of knowing what's going on in the state, but it doesn't play any it doesn't have an impact on the evaluation of your application. So we definitely encourage you to use it, try different iterations, and just get the most out of it.
Yeah, and it's important to stress, right, that you can submit as many EOIs as you'd like, in different iterations of your project, as well. So, certainly something that you're welcome to do. If a community is not aligned to a program requirement, for example, too populated for rural, non-compliant with MBTA zoning, will the AI report that back immediately or at the conclusion of entering the project information?
So basically, The tool, so you'll provide a description and the tool will ask questions based on that description. So it'll look at like what community it's in. It won't necessarily say, it won't say that you're not qualified as a rural community or you don't, it won't say what you don't qualify for until the end, but it will tailor its questions based on what it thinks you may qualify for. So basically, you know, you're willing to feed in any information that you'd like, but it will yeah, it won't give you eligible kind of yay or nay until till the end.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm developing low-income housing. Which projects get priority? Not sure.
Y-
Kind of the framing of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would just say that, in general, our programs look at the highest impact uh, projects to fund. So I don't think it's, I don't think we can say necessarily a certain project gets priority. It's each project's looked at individually on its own merits.
Mm. And then for UPP, can the underutilized property program funding support the restoration of an historic structure? For example, it's on the National Register, owned by a municipality. It's going to depend on its use, right?
Yeah, it would kind of, yeah, I think it would depend on what the end use is. In the current state of the property. If it's underutilized, if it's blighted, if it's vacant, and it's the intent is to have a bring it into a productive use, it potentially could be.
Again, looking at the guidelines will probably help kind of define what some of those scenarios are and what some of the
Yeah,
conditions
and that's
are.
that's also a great question to bring to the UPP office hour session,
Yeah,
which will be happening in April.
yeah. Let's see. We have would demolition of a town-owned building to be renovated to a park community gathering space need to be sent in separately on the EOI or together? How would
Um,
you advise?
it sounds like that would be a single project unless you're, or so it sounds like develop the demolition of a town-owned building. Yeah, I think that would be one project unless you're looking at the demolition and the. So I will just note that most of our, I guess we need a little more context. Generally, our programs don't fund the construction of parks, but I would say start by submitting it as a single EOI. And again, you could certainly break them up if you'd like. We just need a little bit more context about the project to really understand.
Okay. And again, you look at the guidelines, you could put in, there's unlimited use of the EOI, so you can try putting it as one project or just separating it out. But I think to Pat's point, it's important to look at particularly I think the infrastructure side or the site readiness side of the continuum to understand what these programs are able to fund, right? At the end of the day, we're looking to provide investments through these grant programs that will result in economic activity. And so we're looking for, there's going to be a lot of questions in this application about how many housing units are potentially going to be leveraged, how many new jobs are coming because of the project. How is it supporting small businesses in your downtowns? In the case of the downtown activation, right? So be mindful that that's really kind of the focus of the community one stop is to drive and advance the goals of the Commonwealth in terms of economic growth in all corners of the Commonwealth. And you'll see another great place to look if you're new to the one stop is on our webpage. We list out the awardees of projects that were awarded in previous rounds with a brief description of each. That's always a good place for you to look, get a sense, look up some communities that perhaps are similar size to yours and see what kinds of projects they've been able to do. And and I think that'll give you a sense of what types of applications have been successful in the one stop in the past. Okay, Pat, it looks like we've come to the conclusion of our questions here for this
Great.
webinar.
Well, thank you, everybody. Again, we'll be posting this recording on our website, and we hope that you join us on Wednesday for our next webinar, looking at the application guidance and different kind of scenarios and how to address those in the application. So,
Yeah. So Pat, this looks like somebody just asked a quick question. New build is not eligible. So there isn't any program in the One Stop right now that supports new building, new building.
no,
No.
yeah, yeah. Generally, for the one-stop kind of new construction, yeah, new construction isn't something that we fund.
Yeah.
Mass development does have some resources, some financing resources, but yeah, the one-stop's not the best place for those projects.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
All right, thank you.